time. The stage is yours. Everyone enjoy this amazing presentation, and yeah, have fun.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for that warm introduction. As she said, my name is Meaghan Timko. I'm the founder of Parallel. We opened up in 2020 to address the adult services and workforce development issues faced by our community. And so I'll get right to it. So what we do at Parallel is two things. We do what we call future planning and workforce development. And with future planning, we help families create plans for a future of independence, dignity, purpose, and respect for their child. And with workforce development, we build sustainable community-based workforce development initiatives where we take the resources a community already has at their fingertips, pair it together with the education source in that community, and we push them together to build these sustainable pipelines so that we don't face the cliff. But today, what I'm going to talk to you about is future planning. And so how did we get here? My business partner, Dr. Dana Zavakai, who's not here today, we both started working in early intervention. And then we worked as school consultants, and people would always ask us in both of these roles, what happens next? When I'm in early intervention, what do I do next? When my child's in school, what happens next? And then we were working in transition services, and people kept asking us, well, what happens next? And we noticed that as we progressed in our careers and along this continuum of services, the answers weren't as abundant at the end of that after transition services. We didn't have any answers. And this is probably not unlike your journey. It probably went something like this. Your child went into early intervention. Maybe that was ABA, maybe that was speech or OT, floor time, play therapy. And after your child was done with that, maybe they went into school. Maybe this is primary school, secondary school, middle school, high school. Maybe they were on an IEP. Maybe they had a support plan or some sort of accommodation. And then from there, you started talking about transition plans. And this can be a myriad of things. This could be vocational training. This could be life skills. This could be just the plan for how are you getting out of secondary school or high school. But after all of those things, parents and their children are faced with the cliff because all of these end. And a couple of things happen here at this cliff. And this is something that we've observed with our clients and something that we talk to people about all the time when we give this presentation. The frantic search for resources, the panic. What's going to happen when I'm gone? Is my child ever going to have a sense of independence? Will my child be happy? Will my child be treated with dignity by the world? Will my child experience a sense of purpose? Existing resources are limited to what they have access to. And that's true both here domestically in the United States where I am and internationally. And this means the programs, job placement, training, it's really limited to where you are, what they have. So if you're in secondary school in the United States and the transition coordinator at your school has access to 3 jobs, those are the 3 jobs that your child's going to receive training for. And then when there's quality resources, those quality resources are stretched so thin in terms of funding that often there's long waits and there's just not enough space and not enough time for the people that work there. And this results in a lot of different things. So for the sense of self for our clients, for the children who are transitioning out, there's lack of identity and purpose. If you don't have anything to do and you don't have anywhere to go, how do you form a vision of who you are and what kind of adult you will be? For education, lack of learning and skills needed to move forward towards jobs and careers if that's the path for you. For some people, that's university, technical school, some sort of job or vocational training. And for living, no place to exercise independent living. This could mean persons who could live completely independently aren't fostered in that direction. Persons who could live semi-independently fall outside the scope of severity for assistance, or you end up living at home with mom and dad. And we call this in the basement. And this is something a lot of people here in the United States, when they transition out of school age services, end up at home with nothing to do. And really, that sense of community, in essence, is where we lack. We're searching for friends, longing for romantic relationships, and without a place to have fun and do the things you like to do. We consider this the most important thing in this entire ecosystem of what are we going, where are we going, what are we doing next? And if you listened to Dr. Shore's TED Talk before this, maybe you heard him talk a bit about community and how his parents brought him to community, because we realize the same thing. This is where you find your people. And because of this, because of all of this, it goes from what happens next to where do I belong? It leaves our clients, the individuals that we're planning for, the people transitioning from secondary school to whatever's next for them, asking questions like, who am I? What am I going to be? Where will I live? What is my job? Who are my people? And this is what we call the problem, because for a lot of people, our clients included, there's not an answer. It's starting to change a little bit, but not fast enough, not big enough, and the answers aren't innovative enough to solve the problem yet. But that's what we're trying to do at Parallel. Create a simple, approachable way for people to think about the future a little bit differently. So thinking about independence, adulthood, dignity, purpose, employment, happiness, community. What are all the options for these things? Do we have a plan that's centered on the person that we're planning for instead of school? Do we have something that's not cookie cutter? Are the skills slated as transition goals appropriate for my child? There's so many different questions that people think about at the end. And what we're starting to ask people is to think about these things in the beginning, right now. So the solution for us is to create that plan, to bridge the gap between where you are and whatever's next, and to start this process as early as you possibly can. At Parallel, we have clients that are as young as 12 years old, and we have clients that are into their 30s. And we think both of those times are appropriate to plan. But what we really think about is we have to plan for getting from where you are to where you want to be strategically. And so we do that in a few different phases. It's 12 steps that we do it in, but really we divide it into 4 really critical phases that are necessary to understand who is the person that we're working for, what are the things that we need to be planning for, what are the resources and the team that we need to make it happen, and how are we going to launch this so that it's sustainable, it's filled with purpose, and it's filled with dignity. So the first group of things you'll see at the bottom with that little house is what we call inspiration. And so this is defining where the journey will start. And we call everybody that we work with a traveler, because this traveler is taking a journey, hopefully at some point, semi-independently. And only through identifying the starting point and who the traveler is, can we really decide where we're going. After that, we do discovery, which is, where have you been? What are the things that have become barriers for you before? What are the things that could be barriers in the future? And how do we plan around those things? And how do we make contingency plans for what happens if it's not okay? And all of those things, when we work with individuals, they come up. And so the best plans that we make, sometimes life comes up and we just have to say, okay, let's reroute. And then we, together with the team, say, and usually the team is the parents, we say we're going to design a plan that identifies exactly what skills are needed to be developed and assembled the resources we're going to need for that, the team members needed to address them. And we're going to write these so that they bridge that gap I was talking about. And so a lot of the time, people come to us with transition plans that are rooted into a resource where the sun is going to set. Meaning, if you're in the United States and you're in a secondary education setting or high school, the plan is centered around school. But when the sun sets on school and school ends, so does that plan. And so when we think about how are we going to really design a plan with purpose and with intention, we're designing a plan where that goal, if we go back here, will bridge between A and B. And then we travel after we've designed this plan. We take the people with us that we need, and we collaborate amongst each other instead of going in silos. And so a lot of what we see is we have a team of people, and the speech language pathologist hasn't ever spoken to somebody maybe doing OT, or the parents in the school aren't talking, or the school isn't talking to an outside therapist. And whatever your pool of resources is, we pull all those people at the table and we say, we're going to do this plan together. In our work, we look at future planning across 5 life dimensions. We did this purposefully. There's not a lot of protocols that really address transition planning. And really, we don't even like to think about this as a protocol. We like to think about it as a different way of planning the future. And so we radically simplified a lot of the things that you're probably already familiar with so that this is easy to do, so that it's approachable, and so that it doesn't feel like yet another checklist of items. And so organizing everything you need into these 5 areas: self, education, living, work, and community. Self is everything that would be inside, so executive functioning, motivation, any sort of mental health or therapeutic services. Education is secondary school, it's post-secondary school, it's vocational training, it's skill building for work. Living is exactly what it says. Living in a home with people, what skills do you need to do that? The world of work, which a lot of the time, that's the only thing we see when we talk about adult services and transition planning is work. But it doesn't exist in its own silo. It exists in network with all of these other things. And then community, that really important piece of it right there, because without community, these 4 other things don't matter too much. And community, again, is who are my people? Where are my people? And who can I go to when I need something? This right here is the first activity that we go through with people. And I feel like it's really important because our method is human-centered. And what that means is we do everything around the person that we're planning for. And so the child or young adult that we're working with really has the first say in everything. And this means tell me who you are. And that can be draw me who you are, write about who you are, cut pictures out and paste it. We've had clients take art from the internet and make a PDF out of this. Describe who you are. And that really helps us understand who we are actually planning for. And sadly, it's probably one of the things we find out that has never been asked of this person, is to really authentically communicate who you are and who you want to be. And so this is an activity. If you're looking at this, feel free to take a screenshot. We give this out all the time. But we ask them to do it independently. And then we ask parents to fill this out as well, so we can see their vision of who their child is. And sometimes they're really close and sometimes they're really different. But we can really merge this together in the end, but it's really a beautiful thing. When we ask them these questions, we really are trying to understand who they are at their core. What makes you unique? What makes you happy? When are you at your best? Do you love learning? Where do you imagine living? What does a happy home look like to you? What's your dream job? Who are your friends? What do you want to do for fun? And you'll be surprised at how much you learn from somebody by asking these basic questions. And really, this is the starting point for us, because what's next can't start until we understand who is going to be in the driver's seat of this plan. Who do we plan for? Who should have a plan for the future? I imagine if you're here listening to this, and I imagine if you're part of this conference, you fall into one of these categories. An individual with an IEP, a 504 plan, somebody who's neurodiverse, somebody who's on a non-traditional path out of secondary school that may require specific support, somebody with mental health or developmental diagnoses, a history of supported learning. All of these things are things that are applicable to future planning, and more. And so we don't think that there's a limitation on who should be thinking strategically about their future. But certainly this is what the Roadmap Lab is geared towards. And then the other question we get is, when is the best time to get started? So this one is a little bit more difficult, because when we have students that come to us that are already in university, or they've already transitioned out of secondary school, that's an okay time. The ideal time, I would say, is at the beginning of high school, or ninth grade in the United States. And this would be when you're starting to think about college or university or work, or what you're transitioning to, and all of those things are possible. We also make plans for people who are just merging into the community and want to become a community member. And so even for all of those different outcomes, the best time really is now. There's never been a time when somebody comes to us and says, well, I'm not going to make a plan because it's too late. In our opinion, it's never really too late to think about, where am I going and what am I doing? And if we go back to this right here, the beginning is always the same for each person that we work with, is asking, well, who are you? And that doesn't matter if you're 13, if you're 15, if you're 25, if you're 35, starting here and then saying, okay, where are we going? And in 20 minutes, unfortunately, it's just not enough time to explain all the steps in between. But if you can find out who you are, and if you can identify where you're going, what you do is you have the beginning of a plan to what's next. And you have the beginning of a plan of the supports you need, of the team you need, of the resources that you need, to really make a plan for your future. And you can do this over and over and over again, much like many things in life. You get to what's next, and you're excited and you're happy and you do it, and then you start planning for the next thing. And there are certainly no end to the amount of times that you can reimagine what the future looks like, or that you can decide, hey, I've done this and now I want to do something that's next. And we have clients that have like a 1, 3, 5-year plan. We have clients that have just a 5-year plan. We have clients that have a 6-month plan. And so there's really no limit to how you can structure, what are we thinking about and what are we planning for when we think about the roadmap to what's next. So I think that's at my 20 minutes that I was given.
That was amazing, Meaghan. Thank you so much for this presentation. I think you want to share maybe where people can reach you, right?
Yep.
That would be awesome. Perfect. We can see it right now. Maybe you can
Great.
say something to that.
So you can see our website, our Facebook page, our Instagram page. We made this special code for the people at the ApexINSPIRE event, and you're welcome to use that through today and tomorrow. I put today only, but our IT guy made it through tomorrow, so lucky y'all.
Perfect. That's awesome, Meaghan. Thank you so much. Meaghan, a quick questions before we say goodbye, our goodbyes for today. What was your motivation about this amazing vision that you created?
I think the motivation for myself personally was I had worked in early intervention in the school-based services for a couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
And as a clinician, as a practitioner, you get really excited about your work, right? You get excited when you see somebody hit a goal. You get excited when you see somebody graduate out of therapy. It's very, very exciting. When I started to work in transition and adult services, and I realized there was nothing for people, essentially, it felt a little, it broke my heart, to be quite honest with you. Um, there was not a lot out there for people. And we have this group of people who've worked so hard for, like Dr. Shore said in his video, they've worked so hard for awareness, for
Right.
acceptance, and then there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not the only person in the world who has come to this point, and many people have. But I think a lot of us are starting to go, we need to start thinking about what's after that too.
True.
Because if we work really hard to create a fabulous first 20 years for somebody, we have to think, how do we work really hard to make the next 20 years equally as great, and inspire people to, I would say, allow places in society for inclusion, and for awareness on the next part of life.
Wow, I am really inspired by your vision and mission. I can't thank you enough, Meaghan, for being part of this summit today and be part of helping and supporting those people. That is just amazing. I think I don't see any questions so far, but Meaghan shared all the details where you can get in touch with her. Meaghan, thank you so much again. It was an honor to have you here on the stage. Yeah, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Nicole. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.